Welcome to Wick-Splaining. My name is Chuck Wick, and with me I have my brother Paul Wick and our producer Caleb. We are going to be discussing political issues on the local, state, federal levels.
Can I talk?
I'm the host, so I'll do as much talking as I want.
I'm not sure I enjoy that.
Well,
you can argue about who's going to do more talking later. We have a show to do.
We're brothers. We're going to argue.
That's fine, but the people on the other end don't want to hear you guys arguing right now. They'd rather hear about a good conversation that you guys have planned for them.
All right.
You're right, Caleb. All right, Chuck, well, let's get to the topics.
Okay, we have a great show planned for everybody today. Music from our intro and outro is music from Desolate, a Dayton, Ohio area band. Today our topic is going to be things that piss everyone off. We have a couple of guests with us today. We have our father, Gary Wick, and a friend of the family, Keith Warner. And they're going to sit in and give us some information and some feedback on things like that. So I'm going to hand it over to Paul to start off the episode with things that piss people off.
All right. Let's get into this. Keith is more than a family. He's like family. So we're going to get into this, and we're going to say, things that piss us off. Certain people that just have too much privilege in life. Try to express their opinion. Some people call them Karens. But, Keith, what do you think?
Okay, well, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everybody's enjoying their day of celebration and family get-togethers. I am sitting with some very knowledgeable men today. Gary's like turning around like, okay, no, not me.
Trying to find these knowledgeable men in the room here.
Everybody's looking around.
Are these the ghosts of Christmas past or something?
I thought somebody walked in.
I didn't see anybody else,
Right.
Exactly.
I am an older man, and I guess I've raised some children, and hopefully I've done well with them. And
you raised some children, you didn't guess.
Yeah. And,
may have guessed on the raising, but that happens. Every
right,
parent will tell you they guess too.
Right. It's all sort of a learning process for sure.
Trial by error.
Absolutely, Gary.
Right.
But I sort of was waning towards what Paul had mentioned earlier, the fact that society has changed in so much of a way from when I was raising my children, and I see a big upswing towards children that are raised, I feel, improperly. Now that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that I'm not a child psychologist, so I don't really know all that. I'm not educated in this, but I just see a lot of children are raised, and they don't have to be younger children, it can be older children, that are raised with what they feel is like a privilege, self-centered.
Brother, podcast. We gotta get to it.
Okay, so
you had a story you want to tell me earlier, so tell me that now.
Yes, basically, I've got unnamed neighbors that, for some reason, we just don't get along together, and I see these children being brought up basically to that point where they're very self-centered, and I just see that as a problem in today.
No specific story.
Uh,
I mean, we need a realization here.
Okay,
You know,
well,
did somebody do something?
golly Neds. Unfortunately, I got my own grandchildren that I see this in all the time.
All right. Give a story. We don't have to have
Okay.
names. We can call them, alphabet A and alphabet C.
Okay, well,
Give a story.
the alphabet A, and especially the oldest one, as I was talking earlier, when I was growing up, there was no back talking. Mom and Dad ruled the house. That was it. What they said was gospel. It wasn't no questions asked. Now I see person A lashing out, being rude to her parents, those kind of things. And
What's the what do they do? What do they do?
Person.
The father says, and the mother says.
Yes, the father will say they'll get in trouble, and the father and mother will say, "You know what? Your punishment is go to the room."
All right. But they get everything there, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's everything's there, so
they're not neglected from TV. They're not neglected from their toys. They're not
Correct.
neglected from. It's not go to your room and stare at your wall. It's go to your room and play.
correct, exactly. What kind of punishment is that? But
Exactly.
I'm not. I just want to. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying every child
No.
is raised improperly. I just
Right.
see a lot of it being,
Right.
and I'm not saying I've raised my children perfect. So
Right.
No.
Well, let's go into a little different way of looking at this. We have some more experienced men in the room. So let's talk about what was it like to grow up in the 50s, 60s. The way that you were raised, your interactions with your parents. How did that go for you guys? I mean,
Outside our house.
we're talking about my dad here, so that we know Paul and I know his parents, obviously our grandparents, and then Keith, you grew up in that same time period. So what was it like to grow up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and what were your parents like and all of that? Go ahead, Dad.
Well, the main thing was that what you didn't have, you didn't know about. Back then, there wasn't a lot of stuff on. There wasn't a lot of TV. Few channels on the TV, and you watch them whatever. But you didn't know that you were poor. You
Right.
didn't know that that you didn't have the proper shoes to wear to school or something like that. It was just whatever you had to wear, you wore. There was a lot of older people back then that had different ideas. One of the me and my brother's friends, his uncle owned a farm out where we were living, and he was a bachelor, and he was very, very conservative. He used to chew tobacco, and then after he got done chewing the tobacco, he'd set it on the windowsill so it would dry out, and so he could smoke it in his pipe.
Oh shit.
So it was one of them things where we thought nothing of that. We thought that was a natural thing. He had a well outside his house with a windmill, and we'd go over there to see him every once in a while. He'd have us go out and hook the windmill up to the well so it'd pump water up in the attic in his house, and that's how he got his water. There was a horse trough up there that the windmill pumped the water into the horse trough, and he had a pipe sticking out over the window, so when the water started coming out that pipe, it was full. And you go out and unhook the windmill.
Yeah.
So it was a lot simpler then. I mean, and that's how he got his pressure for his sink, was because the horse trough was in the attic.
Right.
And the water would flow down into the
Just
sink.
gravity.
Yeah, just gravity flow down into it. But things seemed to be a lot simpler then. It was less complicated. You had to learn things on your own. You had to fix things on your own.
Right.
So it's not like it is today, where you could just go down to the store and buy something.
Yeah.
And well, you used to be able to till Biden was president. But now that
I think we're back into the things that piss us off.
now that we have old Joe in there, everything's sitting out in the ocean in the ships, and we'll get it someday.
Maybe.
But if it don't get all waterlogged. But yeah, it's different today than it was back then. It was a lot simpler. It's like going to the store and them not accepting cash for what you want to buy. You know, they want a credit card. Well, if you don't have a credit card with you, you tell them, I don't want the stuff then. If you aren't going to accept my money.
Right.
Because it used to be all you had was cash to pay things with.
Right.
It was very unusual when credit cards come along. Because you could just keep spending on the credit card and nobody said anything until the bill came to the door and you found out that you spent 3 times what you should have.
Yeah.
And
well, credit cards didn't come into existence until the 70s, I believe, right? Was it?
I think it was a little bit before that, but
Okay.
yeah, somewhere around in there.
But they always had the magnetic strip thing, the carbon copy that they'd swipe across it.
Yeah.
So and they would call it in to get the authorization on it.
Yeah. See if you,
so it was a much different format of using a credit card at that time.
Right. Right. So things are different today than they used to be. It just I don't know that it's better. A lot of people say it's better, but some of the electronics on the car I drive drives you crazy. You know, I'd rather have a car that you could roll the windows up and down with a crank, and because if you can push the button and the window doesn't go down, then you got to take it in and get it worked on.
Right.
You know, whereas before you could always push the glass back up or something. You know, stick plastic on it. But yeah, things are different now than what they used to be.
Perfect example of what Dad was saying was today I tried to back the car out of our driveway and the car wouldn't let me because it said I was too close to other cars. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a little close.
Right.
It was way too close for sensors. Don't get me wrong. But I have also drove a semi-trailer, semi in a trailer, and I can back that damn thing up too. So don't tell me that I cannot back up a car in my own driveway. You know? So, old men.
Well, let's go to Keith and have him talk about some of the things that he experienced when he was growing up. Kind of like the same thing that Dad was talking about.
Right.
I was sitting here thinking that Gary's maybe thinking a lot. I was a sophomore in high school till I lived in a house that had indoor plumbing. So I remember the going in the winter having what we call a pot, and you used the restroom in it, and you took it out in the outhouse. Lived up very poor, and like Gary said, we always had food on the table, we had clothes on our back, and we had a bed to sleep in. So I 100% agree with Gary, the fact that was the way we lived, and we didn't think about it. Well, we're poor, or we got this or got that. That's the way you lived. Yeah. That your parents took care of you, had food on the table, clothes on your back. I got clothes twice a year. I got them for my Christmas, and then I'd usually get clothes for my birthday. So, or start out the school season and get 3 pairs of pants and a couple of shirts, and them had to last you, a pair of shoes if you needed them, socks. So yeah, it wasn't that we was poor. We was, but we didn't think of it that way.
Right. So
that has changed tremendously. The material is, can't get enough. Got to have this. Got to have that.
In
And you
today's
also gotta
society,
think-
with the TV and the internet,
Right.
that's the difference, is that kids are able to see the things that they classify as they're missing out on. The shoes, the material items that they don't have available to them. They can see that on the internet now, and then they desire those things, and then they're bugging their parents about getting these items.
Right.
And it just becomes, it's a much different society now than I think when the two of you grew up. And
And it's not that long ago,
Absolutely.
really. I mean, when you think about things, it's not that long ago. Keith, you said you were a sophomore in high school before you had the luxury of an indoor bathroom.
Correct.
That's somebody's phone.
So it's just like cell phones. I mean, it used to
Perfect
be
example.
the furthest you could get from your phone was how long the cord was on the receiver. I mean,
Yeah,
other
the
than
cord.
yeah, and some
there's
people
a long
put
cord, yeah.
somebody put a long cord on some of them so they could go in the other room, but.
Yeah.
Today everybody's got a phone they carry with them everywhere. I mean, you don't think about who could get a hold of you. I mean, you're driving down the road. Used to be you never heard the phone till you got home.
Yeah.
Right.
Now the phone goes off while you're going down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
I just want to put a time frame on the in I hate to say it, indoor outhouse. So even Keith said, when he was growing up, it was outside. So, you guys were born. Your dad, you're 1948 born, and it wasn't until you were in high school that you put a bathroom in the house.
yeah.
So that was good 16 years later. So 1948, 16,
1964.
1964. I mean, that is just so crazy to think about the age difference and then what we're saying. It's I want people to understand that it was not that long ago.
Well, I mean, it's a completely different situation nowadays. I mean, people even get angry about not having enough bathrooms in their house now. People want 2-3 of them in their house now, and it's like, just 60 years ago, it was pretty commonplace to not even have one in your house. You have to go out in the backyard to use it. So again, we're talking about people that are just privileged and selfish, and they don't know a difference between what they're experiencing now and what has happened in the past. I mean, I see that a lot with some of the kids that I deal with. I've done some, substitute teaching and worked with kids in different capacities, and I can tell you right now that they act like they're entitled to things. And I, from the experiences and the conversations I've had with people that are older and have experienced things through, the 50s, 60s, 70s, they, the feeling of entitlement was not something that you even had. I mean, for the most part, maybe amongst the really wealthy, but for the average citizen of the United States, that was not something that you could even try to experience, because there was no reason to have even think that you did not have what you needed. You did not know that you even needed it. That's the difference, is that it's just the way that life was at the time. So I mean, Dad, do you have any other stories to go with that, or?
Oh, a lot of them. It's just like my grandmother and grandfather. They lived out in the country, out in Green Township. They lived about 20 miles from a grocery store, and she would talk about her and her sister walking into the grocery store and buying groceries and walking back home. So that's 40 miles.
Yeah.
And carrying groceries on the way back. So
Right.
Wow.
it was, it was that type of life that they had.
So going to the grocery store will be an entire day's trip.
Yeah.
Then at that point.
Yeah, it would. And but then you had to make up for it the next day to get the rest of the work done.
Right.
Because it was they were milking cows and feeding hogs, and it was they lived out on a farm, so they had a lot of work to be done. They had 8 kids, so it was a pretty good chore of keeping everybody together and knowing what to do and how to do things.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a difference there because your punishment is, and I saw this written up there on the board by your mom.
Yep.
That your punishment is that you're not allowed to watch YouTube for the next 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had said this to Grandpa here,
He doesn't even
50,
know what
60
YouTube
years
is
ago,
now.
he wouldn't have known what YouTube was.
Wouldn't care.
Wouldn't have cared.
Well, he doesn't know what it is now, let alone 50 years
Right.
ago.
He wouldn't even care now. So.
No. And granted, Chuck was born 1977. I was born 1983, and we lived in a house that did not have heat in the upstairs, let alone AC. We didn't have AC. We had a window AC unit that cooled our downstairs to help us not have 150 degrees in the house.
That was actually much later.
And
Yeah.
that was much later. We did not have heat or AC in the upstairs. And I try to tell people
We didn't have heat
that-
in the entire house at one point. We
Well,
actually
it was
we
a
actually had
it was a
kerosene heaters in the
We had wood stove.
a wood stove. That's right.
Yeah.
In the living room, and we
Which Steve Deek helped us out
Yeah.
that one time. Yeah. Dad will tell you, you can tell, if you want, Dad, you can tell a story about the Steve Deek and the furnace and everything. But,
In the furnace, what?
I don't know.
with a wood stove, it caught fire to the roof, and Steve Deek went up there and put it out while Mom and Chuck, as a baby, were outside.
Oh yeah, well he didn't put it out. They just wanted to see where it was coming from. It had a chimney fire. Is what it
okay.
was. The fire went up the chimney, and there's nothing really you could do about that. Just let it burn out. But because of the creosote from the wood, it lined the chimney. The chimney caught on fire. But just a little bit of a glitch in the life
Right?
of using a wood stove.
Yeah.
Right?
But and they talk about it's like air pollution now. I mean, back when my dad was being raised, everybody had a coal stove. They heated their house with a coal stove, and you can imagine how much coal dust and smoke that went in the air. Today, you never see that at all.
Yeah.
And but they still talk about there's so much pollution in the United States. Well, there's not that much pollution in the United States, I don't think. It's just one of those things that as time goes by, you have less and less pollution because of the way that things are being handled now.
Yeah, I mean, the pollution I think they're talking about from today is cars and factories and things like that are polluting the atmosphere. But
I mean,
I think
seriously.
I completely agree with you, Dad, that that's definitely something that's changed because you've got clean burning energy sources that like natural gas and those items that that obviously are heating a lot of houses now. You don't have as many wood-burning stoves. You don't have as many coal. You don't have that kind of stuff going anymore. The majority of people are working on either electric or natural gas, which both of those are clean sources that don't pollute the atmosphere. So, that's a completely different situation now.
We have gone wide spectrum on all topics today.
Well-
so, thinking that we should probably bring it back to one specific topic. What do you want to talk? What was on your mind, Chuck? What's on your?
Well, I mean,
what's hit hard on all the things that we talked about? What's hitting?
I would say when we go back to the theme of what I said was the beginning of this podcast was, things that basically piss us off. I feel like the biggest thing that pisses me off is just the sense of entitlement, the selfishness that we see in today's society. How people don't even care about their fellow citizen, their fellow human being. You see somebody basically pulled over on the side of the road having car trouble, and it used to be that you'd have multiple people and pulling over helping. Now today people just drive right on by, just keep going like nothing. It doesn't affect them. It's like not my problem. Is the main line you hear from people, and that's not the way that our society should operate. We should be willing to help our fellow man, and
but even today most people got cell phones, so they assume that they've already called somebody for help. So which is probably a good thing, because you don't always want to. It used to be you knew just about everybody around you, but today you don't know the people living next door. So it's kind of hard to stop and help people when when they may be in trouble, they may not be in trouble.
It's a fear of. I think it also comes back to our television shows and the internet and YouTube and all these things. You see so much that what it has done is it's instilled a fear in our society of other people.
To help people.
And it's like, it used to, you didn't think about that in the past because you didn't have all these sources telling you that people are bad. Don't accept help from people. Don't do this, don't do that. When somebody was having trouble and someone went to help, you accepted that help.
Yes.
In today's society, everybody is just so afraid that you're oh, here's a chocolate bar. Well, did they put a razor blade in it? Or it's like, I mean, when we went around trick or treating when we were kids, when we came back, nobody really paid attention to anything. It was just. You trusted the neighbors that you had,
and we had actual homemade things, not just Hershey Kisses, not just
popcorn balls.
That
was a big one back then.
Muffins, we had muffins sometimes.
Brownies, things like that.
There you go.
And people trusted that your neighbors were wholesome enough people that they weren't going to put. Some kind of poison or a razor blade or something in your candy.
Like, who does that? Seriously.
But today, there's so much fear because now it's like, okay, in California, somebody put razor blades in brownies, and now all the way over here in Ohio, we hear about that, and now everybody has this fear in their mind that, oh, this is going to happen to my kids, or this is going to happen to me, and now I'm going to, shut everyone out of my life because I have such a fear that this person is going to attack me in some way. And it's not, I feel like this is just overblown to the point where, it doesn't, you've gone the opposite direction where it's now it's not, let's accept this from these people. Let's be happy that these people are willing to help. These people are willing to give. It's the opposite side of, well, why are they giving this to me? Why are they helping me? What do they want in return? Or why are they doing this? Because what are they trying to do to me for it? And it's like I think it's a proliferation of all of this news that we get. The 24-hour news cycle is definitely killed a lot of this feeling of the sense of security, the sense of feeling like your neighbor is someone that you can trust. And it really, that is one of the things that really irks me is I can't even go to my next door neighbor when she needs her trash cans taken out. She's not even going to ask me to take her trash cans out for her, which would be a common thing in like the 60s and 70s.
Hell,
that would have been common. It would have been nothing for your neighbor to say, "Hey, I'm not going to be available. I'm going to be doing this or whatever. Can you take my trash cans out for me so that the trash gets picked up?" that wouldn't have been a problem back then. Now, today, it's like, well, if this person asked me to do this, well, why are they asking me to do this? What do they want in return for it? And all this stuff. It's just a completely different society with living in fear of your fellow humans, and that I just do not agree with that. I do not feel like that's the way we should live, and I wish there was some way we could hit a reset button and start over again, where life is not like that anymore.
Society repeats itself,
right?
So we're getting there again. It like is the 1920s. Now we're the 2020s, and we're going to get there. But it takes some time. It takes a reset, and we're going to get there.
Yeah, I hope so. I just feel like a lot of the administration that we have in power right now is just allowing this, or even not allowing it, but encouraging it, and the feeling of encouraging this feeling of fear with all of the COVID stuff, the vaccinations, pushing the vaccination on the public, and then that's a whole nother podcast we can go into about all of that. But I mean, it feels like everything they do is to instill fear in the public, so the public will feel like they have to rely upon the government for their everything. And that to me feels like it's a way of gaslighting, and it's a way of control over the public, and keeping people down, and keeping the man in power and the little guy down, so that the only person that can help these people, and the only person they're going to turn to, or the only people they're going to turn to, is the government for help. And it allows them to have that control, and that's not the way that this country was supposed to have been built. It's not the way this country was it was designed in the 1700s. It was designed that people had their own rights, people had their own abilities to do things, and it irritates me and worries me actually for the future, that the fact that people are so easily manipulated by our government and so easily controlled by any little thing that they throw at us, and allow us to feel this fear that, and fear is the greatest motivator. It doesn't matter, success is great, money is great, all of this stuff, but fear is the greatest motivator. It will make you do things that you would never even consider in the past, if based on the fact that you have a fear for your life. Go ahead, Keith. I can tell you have something you want to say.
Fear, you mentioned that, just made me think. Fear is what caused the stock market crashes.
Yeah.
People was fearful they lose all their savings they had. Mm-hmm. Fear is a huge motivator. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Dad, you have anything to say about that? No. Well, that was today's topic. I hope you enjoyed our candid conversation. If you have any comments about our conversation today, please email us at wick.splaining@gmail.com. And even Donnie has something to say.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Subscribe, all right.
And just to wrap that up, you can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.